guess Mark Scally, are going to call you up and...
Okay. I could probably speak, would you like me to speak from here for the presentation?
Joe, are you okay with that? Okay, if you're good, I'm good.
All right, Mark, just give me a second to bring it up.
Okay.
You have your screen up?
I do.
All right, so
Mark, you want me to explain to the public why you're here?
Sure.
Okay.
Nice intro.
Why don't you stand up and introduce yourself? Well, I'll introduce you. Mark Scally is our engineer from Chester Engineers, our outside consulting engineer. And what he's here for tonight is an issue that Council has been reviewing for about a year. And basically what it is called the Pollution Control and Flood Reduction Fee. It all started in 1972. To give you a little history, with the Congress passed the Clean Streams Act in 1972, which means everybody in America had to clean up their streams with respect to sanitary and stormwater. The stormwater does carry a lot of contaminants, and they were flooding into the rivers around America, and Mark is going to show you a picture. If those people who want to show their age will probably remember this. But in any event, as time rolled on through the decades, a lot of states were not abiding by the Clean Streams Law. And in approximately 1999, the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, came to the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, which is a state agency, and said, you're not abiding by the Clean Streams Act. So what happened is we got what is called MS4, which is Municipal Storm Water Sewer System. Did I get that right, Paul?
No.
I didn't think so. Municipal storm separation storm. I forgot the word separation. All right, thanks, Paul. So they came and they said to Pennsylvania, you have to get your act together with respect to cleaning up the stormwater in Pennsylvania. We just got audited by the DEP in August, and the audit was okay. But what the DEP is going to do now is they're going to be auditing every 5 years. And as time moves on, the EPA can come in and fine. One community, a manager that I'm aware of out in the Harrisburg area, their community was fined $83,000 for not complying with the MS4. So what Mark is going to present to you this evening is a slide of what a few municipalities have done in the Pittsburgh area, Mount Lebanon being one, in Plum Borough right next to us. And you can do this, set up a fee for fixing your stormwater if you have a stormwater management district like Plum did, or if you're a home rule community. If you're a home rule community like Mount Lebanon is, or Upper St. Clair, or Hampton, or Bellevue, there's only 91 out of 2,600 some municipalities in the state that are home rule communities. You can go ahead and implement a stormwater fee. Now, what that fee will do is Mark will move ahead with, it will go to strictly for nothing but stormwater equipment to fix the pipes, the detention ponds, the storm grates. So Mark is going to go ahead and he's going to give a slideshow on this. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind, that in the legislature right now, in the General Assembly in Harrisburg, there's legislation pending where all municipalities are going to be able to do this. It doesn't matter if you're a home rule community or if you set up a stormwater management district. There's legislation pending, and where it is in Harrisburg, I don't know. So we're on the forefront of this, and Council has been discussing it. Now, in order to implement a fee, an ordinance has to be passed, and Council has to pass an ordinance. Now, whether or not Council is going to do that remains to be seen. But we feel that getting this out into the public, because it's going to come sooner or later, and all the communities within the next 5 to 10 years are going to be doing it. Your small communities like Pitcairn, like Turtle Creek, like Duquesne, all the small communities are going to have to do this. So every community is going to have to do this in the Commonwealth. So this just is not just Monroeville. And that's the decision this council has to make, either shortly or maybe within the next year. Okay, Mark, you want to?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. Really, what I'd like to do, and thank you for your time, council, as well as, and very important for the public to get an understanding of sort of the details behind how how important this is to the municipality. The fact that it's a mandatory, there's some mandatory requirements that are part of it, and how this can fairly be broken down, and how it was done. So I think it's important to show some of the legwork that was done in putting this together. So I'm going to cover the pollution control and flood reduction. First, kind of going from the manager's background and extending from that, talking about the regulatory needs, current limitations that the municipality has based on resources and budget, what funding options there are, and which we felt would be the most fair for this, and talk a little bit about the fee structure without getting too detailed and technical, but an overview of the fee selection, development, possible credit opportunities, as well as an appeal process. And then, of course, there will be time for questions as well. Tim had mentioned a picture. This was in 1969. I will say, though, this is not Pittsburgh. This is in Cleveland, where this incident happened. And the purpose of this is how much media attention that this had gathered regarding water pollution. Shortly after that happened, there was the Clean Water Act. And Tim alluded to how the Clean Water Act has established requirements for those who do permitting at NPDES, a National Pollutant Discharge Permit for disturbing land over an acre. That's something that's commonly done from the development side. But even the consent order that Alcosan has and has affected the sewer rates, now this has become a stormwater. The attention has been brought to stormwater. And through what's called the MS4, the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems. Now, unfortunately, this area, much like every other area with stormwater infrastructure, it was built around the same time, and unfortunately it's becoming in disrepair in some areas. It needs to be repaired, and there's not adequate budget to facilitate that. So equipment, resources, and budgets at this time are very limited, and based on these new requirements, it's going to be very difficult to impossible to meet the demands that are needed. To break down MS4 requirements, just from an overview, what the municipality is obligated to do is provide public participation and involvement. So it could be through venues such as this, it could be through pamphlets, and getting the word out in the media how important stormwater management is and what the requirements are, because it impacts everybody. The illicit discharge detection and elimination program, that talks about outfalls, actually stormwater outfalls that enter into our streams. And what the municipality has to do is they have to inspect those outfalls routinely, minimally every 5 years. So the permit is actually a 5-year permit and gets renewed each 5 years. So there's an obligation to do this on a continual basis. Now, if there's suspect discharges coming from these outfalls, they need to be sampled. So, professionals or certain sampling equipment needs to check the water quality to ensure that there's no sanitary or other industrial type of wastes that are entering into the system. Construction site stormwater runoff control. I think all of us have been in a situation where we drove by a construction site at some point in time in the past where you see that muddy water entering into the street or muddy water going into the streams. It's up to the municipality to govern some of these things based on whether developers or homeowners are doing out in the municipality. Pollution prevention and good housekeeping, that goes into as much as street sweeping, checking catch basins, ensuring that the system is running the way it should. If we do the inspections and the cleanings properly, we can avoid storm sewer collapses or sinkholes and things like that that could be catastrophic in some cases. The MS4 requirements, so all these obligations require staffing, training, mapping, planning, documentation, I mentioned inspections, facilitating best management practices, or otherwise known as BMPs, and retrofits as required. What that means are the detention ponds, drainage swales, drainage structures. Those all need to be maintained. They need to be inspected. If they're supposed to have grass and vegetation to control runoff, then that vegetation has to, we have to make sure that it can grow the way it's supposed to. So facilitating repairs not only just as emergencies occur, but also planned repairs, and we need the budget to do that. Some examples of recent work was Glenfield or Glenwood, some flooding problems that have routinely occurred. There's a required detention pond that was installed on the photo in the slide on the upper left has some erosion problems, and it also has routine flooding. And with appropriate controls, we're able to control the flooding issue. Now, the cost for that was $325,000, and that's really a major project for the municipality. Unfortunately, we need more projects like this, but the budget of something like this, that's over the budget for doing everything in 1 year. Like I said, the current budget is limited. If you were to account for the cost of all the assets of the storm system, it's about $36 million. But really only about $26,000 is budgeted for storm sewer equipment and materials. So if you could think about your house and maintaining, how much it costs to maintain your house, if you don't put the money into maintaining your house, it can become dilapidated and unfit for living. So same goes with the storm system. So really, the program, the main purpose of the program is to meet the regulatory requirements of MS4, to bring the existing infrastructure up to current standards, providing flood reduction as well as providing pollution control. In order to do this, the approach is to establish a program that meets at least the minimum needs and also the MS4 requirements, but we also have to develop a stable and adequate, flexible and equitable means to fund the program. So how do we fund this? There's a lot of different options available, but really we wanted to find the most fair and balanced option. The user fee model that Tim had mentioned, it's under Legal Act 68 of 2013. It empowers the municipality to levy a user fee to fund planning, operations, construction, and maintenance of storm sewer systems. I will mention, and Tim had mentioned it earlier, that this is a restricted fund, so it's only to be used for stormwater management purposes. So unlike some of the other funding options, this can't be used for other purposes other than stormwater. This is fair and reasonable because it really impacts everybody across the board. It doesn't distinguish based on revenue. It doesn't between homeowner versus business, and also public versus private. On the last bullet in red, it says the cost is shared by all, including tax-exempt properties. All properties that generate runoff from impervious services pay a fee, which includes the municipality. In fact, the municipality is the second highest impervious user. The term impervious, for those who are wondering what that means, it's basically a material such as pavement, concrete, asphalt that impacts the ability for stormwater to percolate into the ground surface. So a grassed area would be a pervious surface, and a paving, a driveway, your roof on your house is considered an impervious surface. So this fee is called a pollution control and flood reduction fee. It's the development of this fee is used commonly in other regions, such as Plum, Mount Lebanon, Meadville. It's based on impervious area determined by GIS. And I will mention, because we did the GIS analysis for this, that it was done across the board. Although we do distinguish between single family and non-single family on how it gets implemented, which I'll get into, the estimate for impervious surfaces was done across the board throughout the municipality. The cost that we've established so far is $8 per month for a single-family residential property. Now, this also is considered an ERU, or equivalent residential unit, which equals 2,385 square feet. So what that means is, based on averaging all the single-family residential properties and the impervious surface that it accompanies those properties, on average is 2,385 square feet. If a property has 23,800 square feet impervious, then they pay 10 times this single-family residential fee. That's for a non-single-family home, so that would not impact a residential, a single-family resident. That would impact a commercial property, which I'll get into as well. So really using the system that goes across the board, we're utilizing an average for single-family residential properties. We're applying that same number as an ERU basis to non-single-family properties, such as commercial properties. It's really the most fair way of dividing this out. Now, in order to come up with the database, we utilize GIS information, which is a geographic information system. We used LiDAR information, created a DEM platform, and also blended that with the Allegheny County Real Estate Database, where we were able to extract information for each property, and that creates basically the ultimate database. I'm going to give some examples. The average home, so this would be affiliated with a single-family residential home. It's 1,471 square feet would be the building. So if you look on the slide, the building itself would be in red, as well as the driveway in front. That's the impervious surface. So the driveway estimate is 914 square feet for a 2,385 square foot total, which is one ERU. And this is the average for all single-family residential properties. So for a fee at $8 a month per ERU, that would be $96 per year. Okay, that is specific to a single-family residential property. Looking at it from a commercial property, or what we're saying is a non-single family, the largest would be, for instance, the Monroeville Mall, and they would have 1,857 ERUs. So you could see how much that could impact a larger retail store. But they also have a lot more impervious pavement, and they'll also have a chance to get credits for mitigating their stormwater as well. Here's some. So I showed you kind of the smallest and the largest. Here's example of church, which is 76 equivalent residential units. Elementary school. So like I said earlier, this involves public and private. So schools will also be impacted from a stormwater from the stormwater management program. And pretty much an average office building is we have about 14 ERUs. We met earlier with the top 20, or at least have invited the top 20 fee payers to talk to them a little bit about this program as well. And also this is a form of rolling it out to the public to keep you informed of how this works for a single-family residential property. The breakdown from when it says income analysis, this would be income for the program to utilize for equipment, for staffing, and for the documentation. The non-single family would be the biggest contributor for this program, and that they're shown at the top at 849, and that would be in about $2 million of revenue. The single family would be less than $1 million of revenue for the one ERU, but of course we have a lot more residents in the municipality. I also want to note that vacant properties are not part of the program if there's no impervious surface, but if there's a lot with a driveway or some concrete flat work or a shed, that does, but they will not be impacted by a one ERU. They'll be impacted by a half of an ERU. So it would not equal the same as as a residence, a residential structure, it would be half. The budgets, so we talked a lot about the development, utilizing GIS, talking about the use of impervious surfaces and estimating this on the customer side, but on the operations side, we have administrative costs, engineering and master planning, operations, capital improvements, as well as facilitating the MS4. And that's what really essential is broken down into the budget. I apologize if this isn't able to be seen, but this will become available as far as the slideshow. But those costs were broken down in a budget. One thing in particular I'd like to point out is that right now we have about a little less than $200,000 a year budgeted for stormwater management, and that's well below what's needed to get to what the municipality needs to get themselves to a status of compliance with the MS4 requirements, as well as just the aging infrastructure that's there right now. The problematic areas are essentially throughout the entire municipality, so there's no particular one section of Monroeville that's going to be the focal point. It's really throughout the entire township border or municipal borders. I will emphasize that with inspections, this obviously could change, and these inspections will happen routinely by the staff. So the fee schedule was set up based on a 5-year program, so that's really how the $8 a month was structured. Like I said before, the impervious pavement was divided equally for all customers, and then the 1 ERU was estimated for single-family residences, and the commercial or non-single family was multiplied by that ERU based on their impervious pavement. The credits pretty much follow more for the non-single family as far as stormwater mitigation. It doesn't so much align with a residential property. And I'll give you an example. If you have, let's say, a church that has a lot of parking lot area, and so therefore they're going to have a fairly large or substantial fee associated with the impervious area that they have, and they come up with a detention pond that will help control stormwater runoff. There is an ability to get credits through the program, and that's something that's going to be offered into the ordinance. I'll briefly run through the appeal process. The appeal would be filed in writing to the municipal manager within 30 days of receiving the bill. The municipal manager will conduct a technical review of the appeal and will respond in writing within 30 days. If that was an adverse decision and the property owner wishes to appeal further, they may take it to the Monroeville Pollution Control and Flood Reduction Board of Appeals within 30 days. And if that decision is also adverse, the property owner would have the choice to appeal to the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas within 30 days of receipt of that adverse decision. Also, just another caveat in the ordinance is the fact that it's a restricted fund, so the monies that would come in as revenue for the use of for equipment, staffing, and implementation of this stormwater management program is restricted just for that. As far as billing, depending on this passing council, so it hasn't been passed yet, but billing would be annual, and it would happen in January with payment due by March 31st. Delinquents will receive letters with penalties, and there would be the ability to lien properties if there's delinquent bills. Okay, so I hope I covered a good overview for you to at least understand how this was broken apart. Impervious on the consumer side or on the property owner side, and budget from what's needed to get us to compliance with the MS4 program, as well as getting our system up to where it needs to be, matching those two, dividing it out, and that's where we have basically established the pollution control.
Well, I do have a question, Mark.
Yeah.
Let's just say council passes it this year, next year, whenever. Let's say we're 5 years down the road and our infrastructure is pretty good shape. Is this going to be like the Johnstown flood fee that's been from 1938, they said when it's all fixed up, it'll be gone. Or is this forever?
Well, my understanding is the way the fee is set up is that it has the ability to become flexible based on the needs of the program. So it's not a lock-in deal where, you'll never, it'll always
In
be
other
an increase.
words, let's just say future consoles, it's $8 a home. But future consoles, because we're in good shape, wants to reduce it to $2 a home.
Right.
They can do that.
Yeah, if the matrix follows suit with that, let's say, for example, the equipment that's needed, particularly the equipment that's needed to get this up and running, it's running well, the program's running well, and a lot of the pipes are fixed, then there's always the opportunity to revisit this.
Yeah, and if any resident has questions, you have to come up to the microphone, sign in, please.
Am I allowed to come up and ask?
Yeah, I just told you you
Yes,
can.
absolutely.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I love you, Bets.
I know. Betsy Desmond, Monroeville.
You sure?
Yeah,
Okay.
this week. I have a question. Now,
Yes.
you're charging the schools whatever amount of money, and that's not in their budget. So that means that the school's going to have to raise our school taxes to pay for that. Is that not true?
Well, I can't speak for the school, but I will say that the fee does apply to everybody.
So the schools have to pay.
You know what, Bets? You should direct those
Yeah.
policy questions toward me.
Okay.
I don't
Well,
want
I
to put
don't
Mark
know
on the
who's in
spot.
That's
charge.
okay, but it's a fee and it's directed to everybody.
Yeah,
and
it's a fee that
I
the
can
school's
speak
Well,
going to
that I
have to
agree.
pay, and it's not in their budget, so where do they come up with the money?
Well, well, hopefully they can work something out where they don't have to do that right away. But again, you need to ask that question probably of the school board directors.
It's something they gotta start thinking about.
They got to start
Right.
thinking about
I
it as
Don't
well.
forget, we have to pay it too.
Yeah.
Remember,
It has to come out of our budget
customer,
I know.
yeah.
as
But
well
it has to
as,
come out of my budget, too.
and on my budget too.
Right.
Yeah.
Number two, HUD homes, do they pay the same amount?
Everybody pays. There's no breaks.
Okay,
Hospitals,
okay,
Church.
Hospitals, churches.
All nonprofits.
okay. I'm just checking.
yeah.
Good questions.
It's a good question because the type of fee that's associated with this, that it's in alignment with that, whereas other fees, taxes and things like that, they would be exempt. So,
If you're wondering why we had Mark doing this, and I'm sure there may be even questions on council. If you remember, we've been talking about this, at least publicly, for the last few months. And I thought it would be appropriate, and I'm sure the administration agreed too, and hopefully you all on council, that to have Mark really sit down and explain that. Now, that's been explained to us on a couple of different occasions, but, when you think about just what Betsy brought up in regards to like the school, the churches, there's some of these folks are really on tight budgets. Maybe, and would be a councilmatic action, that maybe you phase in the full $8 a month, maybe over a 4-year period, do 25% the first year, 50% the second year, and et cetera. I mean, this is all council's, right, if you will, to change any of that. And then when you put on and probably our fault as well, that $8 fee is not in stone because nobody's voted on anything. It might be less. It might be the $8. It might be $4. I don't know, but I still would like to think council will think about maybe putting that over a 4-year period to allow the school district, to allow churches, to allow nonprofits to start working that in their budget. And even for some of our seniors, they may be on, I've talked to a lot of seniors here that doesn't sound like a lot of money, $96 a month, but for some of them.
A year.
A year. All right, you feel better? You all yelled at me.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that's clarified.
But for some folks, that might be a lot of
they
money.
have to fit that in
Water
there.
or something,
And they can't use the budget.
Quit while
pay the
you're ahead.
budget. They have it's something.
Please.
please.
Were you all telling me to shut? Well,
Excuse me.
I'm kidding.
Mayor,
Sir,
he just made a comment too. on that
So-
last
Well,
thing.
you can't use, you can't use your revenue from the fee and put that back into and say, well, that's our revenue, and we're just going to put that right back in. It has to come out of a budget.
That is correct.
Yeah.
At any rate, any other questions for Mark?
Okay, let's move.
All right. Oh, Ralph? You're bad, Robert.
Ralph Greco from Monroeville.
Hi, Ralph.
Hi. You know, what was the budget for the past few years for this?
The current, right now, what we have is $192,000.
Okay. And what will be the new budget cost?
In year, it's going to be an incremental increase through 5 years, but in year 5, I believe it was $3 million.
3 million.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going from 10,000 roughly,
200,000.
or 200,000?
Ralph, if I can help you out on that, yeah, it's a tremendous amount of money, but we have a lot of lines to fix, if you will.
That would be my question. I'd ask Mr. Hughes just how many miles of pipe we have to
Yeah.
take care of.
Well, that was in the
Ballpark.
presentation.
That's my point.
Yes, there's a lot. And that would free up the money that 200,000 that we have in the budget now, that would free that up for us to maybe put toward road work. That would free up that portion of our budget that we now designate strictly for our stormwater.
And here's the deal, Ralph. It's mandated by the federal government and the state, and they've given us nothing to help, zero. It's on the local government, and we owe as taxpayers.
Ralph, here's the thing. Everybody's left this issue go so long, and the federal government was so tired of stepping in, everybody flooding out because nobody's putting any money into their flood management, and here comes FEMA and having to try to bail everybody out. And they finally drew a line in the sand and said, you guys fix it. Okay, and everybody left it go so long, counting Monroeville, that we have a ton of work to do, ton. And if we don't do it, as they said earlier, they're going to come in and fine us. So, although $3 million seems like a lot, and it is, we have a lot of work to do out there. We're going to have to buy new equipment, put more people on, but it's all going to be paid for out of that fund. If there's good news is, as Ms. Gator said, it's going to free up what we normally budgeted for that for capital projects. So it's not, even today, Monroeville floods out in areas. And we have, as I saw down by the small Giant Eagle, if you remember when it collapsed and the lady got stuck. I mean, that Aberskirk Road floods, we have a lot of areas to fix.
48
And-
third, 1/3.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So understand that money, as the engineer said, can't go towards anything except things to repair stormwater. So if they tore up a street to replace stormwater sewers, the manpower, the machines, the material to replace that sewer and to put the road back can all be paid for out of this fund. So again, the good news is it's going to free up the budget money that we can decide where it goes. And at the same time, hopefully get some of this stormwater mitigation fixed, because nobody did it. And the money that we budgeted didn't even scratch the surface of what needs done. So, kind of, hallelujah, they said, enough's enough. I mean, you've seen the news, Connellsville, I'm not saying it's all because of that. Sometimes there is terrific rains that no sewer is going to manage, but I bet you they didn't put money into their stormwater sewer system either. And communities are getting flooded out, and it's causing pollution. So they said enough is enough, and they mandated it. We don't have a choice. We got to do this, and we're trying to do it fairly, but we have to do it.
And to me, it just seems like the little people are always getting picked on.
Well, this affects everyone, Ralph. I mean, every
There's no
business owner,
exemptions.
there's no exemptions. Nonprofits, there's no exemptions to anybody. It's not, it wouldn't just affect the homeowner or, someone that lives here. This affects every surface of the entire municipality.
I don't know, it just seems like it's a tremendous increase.
Well, let me
Well,
put this-
yeah, I think if you would see some of the pictures that they have taken of some of the piping that is underground right now, corrugated piping that is completely rusted out, it's just waiting for enough to collapse. Old clay piping that is just cracked and broken everywhere. I mean, we are sitting on, waiting for catastrophes to happen, and we don't want that to happen. And this is going to be mandated anyway, so we're looking into getting it done sooner than later before we have something really, really bad happen.
And can I ask you another question?
Sure.
Whenever these pipes were put in, they were put in for a reason, and maybe a shopping center or whatever it might have been. Okay. Why weren't they built so that they would last long?
Well, they've outlasted their length of life at this point, and back then, there wasn't, Mr. Yugas, can you back me up?
Yeah, but I would tell you, Mr. Greco, you're looking at two different things. You're talking about private property issues. That does not pay for any of that. So if there was like the one at the bottom of Old William Penn, underneath the old John Eagle, this money doesn't fix that. That's still the responsibility of the owner. This is just municipal-owned storm sewers, detention basins. It doesn't fix private property issues.
So it wouldn't have anything to do with shopping centers or
That's
anything?
correct. No, nothing in the private sector. It's all public.
Just the water that runs off those
Yes.
parking lots.
Yeah, I mean, eventually that water all comes,
Comes down through the
I
storm.
mean,
Well,
they cause the
through some
water
of
to
it.
run off.
But Paul, isn't this a fair statement for Mr. Greco also? All new construction, you hold them to the new standards set forth. for
yes.
the
I mean, we've had stormwater
mitigation.
management regulations since 1992.
Right.
Which have become more stringent over the years.
But every new business is held to
Right,
that standard.
every new business is held to that. But still, there's been a lot of development prior to the 1992.
Correct.
But again, that's all private. That this money, this revenue doesn't pay for any of that.
And how much time do they have to do this?
The permit is a 5-year permit, the MS4 permit, but it gets extended every 5 years. So this is going to be an ongoing operations and maintenance activity.
Forever.
So
Right.
then in 5 years, they could turn around
And
and make the cost even more.
Well, the cost itself is going to be based on the adequacy of the work and meeting the compliance of the permit. So the permit, the cost can be evaluated at any point in time. The permit is a 5-year permit, and it needs to be renewed a year in advance every 5 years. So year 4, you have to renew it to the DEP.
But again, Ralph, you remember what I asked? Let's just say our infrastructure is good and our equipment's good. Can we lower it? And Mark said we could. So hopefully, future councils will take that into consideration, so.
Okay,
Thank you, Al.
thank you.
Any other questions for Mark, ladies and gentlemen? Mark, thank you for your time. We
Thank you, Mayor.
appreciate your expertise.
Thank you, council.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
All righty, council,